welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 162 with Cam Riley, DP of Endurance. Enjoy.
Are you watching anything cool right now?
Watching anything cool?
Because I will say this year has really been pretty rough for major releases.
Yeah, I think just mainly like recycling old shit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And honestly, I've been on the road so much lately. I just like been struggling to find the time to do much, but for both work and personal stuff. So
Well, and they promised us with iPads that like, oh, you can, when you get back to the hotel, you can lay in bed and you can watch whatever. It's like, and I don't want to do any of that.
No.
I want to go to bed.
No, I'll just put on something and just pass out immediately. Hopefully, that's best case scenario.
I tend to, weirdly enough, listen to podcasts to go to bed.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever finished a podcast.
It's comfort stuff,
Yeah. Do you like look when you do watch stuff? Do you normally try to go towards like documentary, or do you prefer like narrative? Or do you have like a preference?
I don't really. For a while, I kind of like I wasn't really feeling doc stuff as much. And then like kind of as of recent, I feel like there's just so much undeniably good stuff out there with just all the new series and everything. It's just like, well, I gotta like partake in this. But for a while, for whatever reason, I think it was like when I first started like working in that space, it's like and shooting like long interviews and stuff. It was just like two in my own head. And I was like, I don't want to watch any more of this. I just sat through like a 6-hour interview.
I've been doing a lot of like interview-based documentary as well. And I've noticed that at first I didn't want to shoot. There seems to be a trend where everything is like the person is framed real tiny in the middle, and like they're just showing wide. And that would like piss me off and make me not want to watch stuff.
Yeah, the visuals can be that.
But now I'm getting asked to do it so much because it's popular that I'm like, oh fuck, now I gotta watch.
I want to feel the space.
Yeah, we paid for it.
Oh, and I don't get me wrong. I mean, in all my commercial stuff, I just love shooting wide focal lengths. But like, I don't know. A lot of times when I'm setting up, talking heads, stuff like that, I'm like, I'll try and do it. I'm like, oh, this is what I need to do. Like, that's what everybody's doing now. And then I'm always like, it's just never like designed enough for it. Like the set isn't like set up for it. And you're like, there's just too much stuff in frame that like bugs me. Whereas like on a commercial, I can be a little bit more prescriptive and like, yeah. So
would you at that point just put the fucking lens on and go, director, this looks like shit. Do you see? We can't do this.
Yeah, it happens, but sometimes we'll just do it anyway.
But I think that's actually interesting because a lot of your commercial stuff, at least stuff you put on your website, is very what I would consider like that's shit that's getting you jobs,
Yeah.
And it's I wouldn't say it's trendy by any means, but it certainly is like that is a high end commercial. Is there kind of a something you lean on to continuously get that look, not just the like VFX or drone shots, but just like in your sort of basic setups? Is there like something that clients keep asking for?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I do a pretty wide range of stuff. Whether it be comedy or like the outdoor stuff or just like the high action sort of stuff. So I mean, I'm constantly having to switch it up a bit for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think like in general, like when I got into it, like my basis was, being able to do that high energy stuff and move the camera quickly, have some like dynamic angles and, shooting wide focal lengths, making everything look fast when the camera moves. So like, that's definitely like a device that I've used a lot to make sort of work that's a little more fun to watch or,
client friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, but then, I go back to like it's just always fun to like work on like different stuff. Like I'll shoot a comedy commercial and it's like more like narrative style coverage and just normal lensing and that sort of thing. But so it's fun to bounce back and forth and keep it all in perspective in that way.
Yeah. Did you go to film school?
I did in Colorado
Oh
for
no shit. Where at?
yeah, in Boulder.
No kid. I
Yeah.
have like a couple friends who went out. That seems to be a good place to go be
Yeah, I
creative.
would say, yeah, the experiences that I gained adjacent to my school process were the most beneficial. I mean, I went there with, um, a bunch of my buddies that I now work with in the film world, and we were doing a lot of stuff in like the ski world, and that's kind of what brought us to Colorado. But like, my time there and like sort of learning filmmaking both through like school and then also just like going out and shooting stuff.
Yeah.
It's super valuable. And then, yeah, we just eventually made our way out to LA and decided to focus solely on the film side of things. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I run college ski trips every winter, so I'm in Summit County all the time.
Oh, nice.
And the company that has me doing that all the time, because I ran the ski and snowboard club at ASU. They for the longest time they were like, oh, you're doing video, can you do video for us? And I was so like narratively locked. I was like, I can't. And they were like, well, just film it, just get some hot chicks, just film it. And I'm like, I need, first of all, I had like a C100, which
Oh, yeah.
it's not huge, but it's hard to snowboard with. And
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Not the most ergonomical. Like,
yeah. And I was just like, I need like a vision here. And they were like, nope. And then they ended up hiring some other company who I now consider good friends. And, they were doing the classic social media, the whole thing,
yeah.
the flashiness. And they were like, hey, if you don't buck up, these guys are going to replace you. And I went, no, do that. Hire them.
That's what this should be.
Yeah. Why do you
That's
don't
what
need
this
me?
deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Were you always an outdoorsy kind of guy? Is that what brought you to Colorado? Or because I saw you're from Boston?
Yeah. Yeah. Originally from the Boston area, grew up. Yeah, mainly like the ski side of things. I grew up skiing all around New England, and then, yeah, me
Ice
and
skating.
group, huh?
Ice skating in New England.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I grew up playing hockey and skiing and doing all the East Coast things. And then, yeah, me and a group of friends, we like been going to high school together. And doing all that stuff together and slowly got into filmmaking through all those activities. We packed up and moved out to Colorado, went to school there for a bit. And then after our time was done there, we took it to LA.
Yeah. I find that, I feel like most of people, I'm 34. I don't know how close you're, probably close enough, but
Yeah. 36.
We seem to all have come to it from some version of, skateboarding, snowboarding, action sports seems to have drawn a lot of us to, and not necessarily narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. It shaped a lot of our, it was a golden era for it when we were growing up, I feel like. And just like the video aspect of it, like, and yeah, I remember the first time I got my hands on a camera, just like a handy cam. Yeah, I was just like filming everything, every activity,
Were you watching like all the Warren Miller films and shit?
Yeah. I mean, I think prior to that was like kind of, that sort of introduced me to the idea that you could like go out and like film skiing and that sort of activity. So like my parents showed me those like all growing up when I was a little kid. And then, definitely had a good collection of those films and was fortunate actually to like, I got to work with them I skied in one of the Warren Miller films.
No kidding.
Yeah. I've had like footage in a bunch of the ones since. Got to meet Warren. It was
amazing.
Pretty legendary. Pretty legendary guy.
That's so cool.
Yeah. No,
They had us run a what do you want to call it? Premiere when I was in college,
Oh yeah.
and that was as close as I got.
Where'd you go to school?
Arizona State.
Oh, ASU. You said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had this big theater, right by
Yeah.
the art storm, and they let us take it over and we packed out the whole house.
Oh, dude,
it was
people
surprising.
would show up for those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they still do a premiere tour. There's not many ski movies left. There used to be like a bunch.
Yeah.
We would make one every year. It stepped, and that was like, yeah, back in the we'd fill the classroom auditoriums and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this is all over the place. But
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of era has come and gone, and there's just a few remaining. I guess Warren Miller being one of them.
I have found running those college trips that back in the day, I feel like skiing and snowboarding, in the 90s was definitely separate. And then
Yeah.
throughout the 2000s, it was just, I hate the phrase like-minded individuals, but like-minded individuals together, like there was like a lifestyle kind of element, and now it is just a vacation.
Yeah.
There's the lifestyle element's gone. So I can see how that, like, the watching a snowboard film or a ski film doesn't hit the way it used to, because the people
Yeah,
watching
no.
it don't identify with it. And it's also so expensive. That lifestyle is not for the people like it once
it's
was.
gone through an interesting transition, that whole world. It's
And it's
But I don't
Bale's
know.
fault.
huh?
It's Bale's fault.
Email's fault, yeah. Corporations. I think it'll come around again. Everything's comes in cycles. It'll get not cool for a while, and then
Right.
so not cool that becomes cool.
I've found that most of the college kids are asking for these two things, kind of the same, but one of them I think you'll find funny. First one is Euro style après. So like 3 p.m., people getting after it, outdoors in their ski gear,
Yeah.
yada, yada, because that doesn't really happen in the U.S. I was like, okay. The second one I've heard asked a bunch from these students is millennial style house party. They don't do that.
They don't do it. That's like a novelty.
Yeah. And so they're like, could you guys throw like a millennial style house party? I was like, no, you have to do that. That's not,
You just do it.
you just show up to someone's apartment, or in this case, hotel room.
What is everyone doing these days?
Dude, I don't know. I think we're getting the tail end of the kids that were like indoors during, not the tail end, the head of the kids that were indoors during COVID.
Yeah.
So they never were together.
That's insane.
Yeah. I don't know. To anyone listening who's like 20, 21, just go to your friend's house and start drinking. It's fine.
Yeah, get a bunch of people together.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Get in trouble for it.
Yep.
A number of times.
You're going to get arrested. It's fine. There was actually, I turned a few people onto this, but I'm going to recommend it. Did you ever hear of a snowboard group called Ice and Seven or Ease and Seven?
Yes.
They had, in my opinion, some of the best ski snowboard movies
Yeah.
in the early 2000s.
I'm trying to remember. I for sure know the name.
They were a German group.
German. Yeah.
They were all snowboarders, and they just had, I think they had like an HPX 170 or something. So it was ever so slightly better than, no, EX3. I know they had an EX3, and that was like a huge deal at the time. And they had a jib arm. And so that was like, for snowboarding, incredible.
Yep. When you introduce the toys, it was always, that was the identity of the film for that.
Yeah, and they had access to After Effects, which was a huge deal.
Yeah,
and all that. But
oh no, yeah, I definitely watched a bunch of their shit over the years.
Yeah, they've released, for anyone listening, they've released it all on YouTube now, so you can just.
Nice.
I wish I owned physical DVDs of it, but they don't. They never sold them in America, as far as I was aware.
Oh yeah, we have we're trying to get rid of all the stacks of our old DVDs. We have a storage container at our studio, and there's probably a couple thousand DVDs of our old ones, and we've been trying to push them out. Like, hey, come grab them. We're gonna get rid of them.
I'll take as many as you want. You can see I got a bunch of.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big physical media guy.
DVD, man.
Well, now all of our players can up-res stuff. You know, it's not going in 480. It's coming out like at least HD.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the streamers can't take it away from you.
I know. I have heard that argument before. It's like everything. It's like you watch like Always Sunny on Hulu now, and you can't watch all the episodes.
Yep.
Because they've deemed some of them inappropriate. Like it's hard to actually fucking go find them unless you like had the DVDs.
Yeah. Or they'll edit it from under you.
Yeah.
You know, they won't take it away completely, but they'll change it, you know.
Yeah, I could have sworn this was different.
Yeah. There was actually one of the guys, VFX guys at ILM, his name's Todd Baziri. He had this great sort of philosophical question because he was saying that in Aliens, I think, or Terminator 2, there's a scene where you can see an actor's cut in half and you can see the hole that he's physically laying in to make it look like he's cut in half. And in the 4K, they digitaled out the hole. And he was upset about this. And everyone went, why are you upset about this? And he goes, are films a living medium or not? And I was like, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because like, now that he's put it that way, I don't think so. I don't think films are a living medium that you can just continuously futz with as time goes on.
Oh, well, the South Park guys did an episode about that where they wanted to update George Lucas and Steven Spielberg wanted to update all the Star Wars and Indiana Jones and stuff, and the kids all protested it.
I didn't see that one.
It's a real argument. Like, you can't just like to make a few more bucks change the thing.
Well, and it's like
that was so great to begin with. Like,
and also there are certain things like the guy laying in the hole where you can say, oh, it makes it objectively better because that was a mistake. But at the same time, did seeing that hole make you want to get into filmmaking?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some value that fit into the bigger picture of the whole film. And like, yeah, like some films are great for like the little flaws.
Yeah.
Like in like early like PT Anderson movies when you can see like the reflection of the camera and like the in like some glass or something, you're like, oh damn. Like, I don't know, it stokes me out. I'm like, I would have left it in too. Like,
yeah,
you shouldn't change it.
Yeah, I think I'm fully on team don't change it.
Well, and you can't change things and then call it the same thing.
Right. Yeah. But even calling it like special, I think the main issue is like if you have changed it, making that the only version that you can get on Blu-ray, I think is annoying as hell. You know, at least give me the full version of the there's some Blu-rays I have where it's like Criterion usually, where it's like not only do we have the restored one, but we have the original that was on DVD and the one that was on television with ad breaks and shit. And it's like, thank you for just giving me all these versions.
They know that there's a market that appreciates that level of detail.
Are you a Letterboxd guy?
In terms of,
do you have Letterboxd?
No, I don't.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll ask you anyway, just because it's honestly, I haven't done an interview in like 4 months. I was backed up until this is going out tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah, unless they tell me not to, but I don't think they said not to. But I've never asked, but Letterboxd, you have your top 4.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, what were the 4 that kind of got you into filmmaking?
4.
It's also a weird number because it's not 5, and I like it.
Yeah. The 4. I mean, definitely like, I'll say it's interesting because 2 of the top ones on my list are like very adjacent in No Country and There Will Be Blood. Obviously,
Sure,
they're controversy and shooting simultaneously, but like first it was No Country for me. That was like one of the first, like when I was like really deciding like I was going to be a filmmaker, That was one of the first like films that I was like lapping and like just watching over and over, and just like couldn't get enough of like just all the compositions and the style of the film and everything about it. And then like I'd say I almost did the same thing with There Will Be Blood, like shortly after.
Right.
I was like, this is
They were released
epic time in cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are two good ones.
I'm outside of that. I'm trying to think. I should have this list more like ready to go.
That, I mean, at least it's not what's your favorite. You know?
Yeah, that one's always fucking ridiculous. And then like it's hard to put a finger on, but like if it's outside of that, it's like because we grew up in an interesting time, like the rise of like Vimeo and like staff picks and stuff, like just watching all this like independent like content that was being put out and that prior we didn't really have access to seeing. That was like our like pastime. We'd like every night we'd like throw on, like we wouldn't even like put on like a movie or sports or something. We'd throw on like Vimeo and just fucking cycle through everything and like be like, what's the new dope shit out right now? Like,
you know what's crazy is I don't think Vimeo was, because they've really gone downhill, but for a split second there, Vimeo was like the heart of independent cinema.
Yeah, it was real.
But I don't know if it was so niche. Like, I applaud you for actually being there, because there was only like maybe 1,000 of y'all. Like, I would watch some of them. You know, the staff picks would pop up. But like
the staff pick, yeah. That was one of it. But yeah, we were doing a bunch of that, and like I don't know if that counts as a
I think it does 100%.
Yeah, I mean it definitely shaped how like we approach filmmaking. We'd see something. This is when we were like I was 17, 18, like just sort of like first being able to like actually go out, get a group of people together and like make like something half legitimate or not really legit at all. But we would
not on DV.
It would inspire us to like go out and like get a crew together and make something just for the sake of making it, because we saw something cool that we wanted to try. Yeah. And it was just like such a good way to get exposed to so much stuff that was achievable, because it was all like a bunch of independent filmmakers doing stuff, and they're like, well, if they did it, I could probably do something like that. Like, and so we were using that as like big time inspo, and yeah, just stuff to get hyped about.
And I'm stoked that you actually say that, because I think the thing that's something that is missing, because now it's all YouTube, and YouTube is just talking about the FX3. You know, there's no creativity on there necessarily.
No,
there's a few people who do gear reviews that are creative, but
yeah, no, and like, don't get me wrong, like there's still like a lot of creativity going on, but it's like so much more focused in that like TikTok world, and that like that's what a lot of these like young up and coming kids are like doing. They're trying to like go after that, which makes sense because that's like what people are paying to see now. But it doesn't have the same. I struggle to see the same link to like cinema and like in that way that, you know, I grew up watching movies, and then I was seeing like young people or people that are, you know, just more independent, trying to do the same things that we watched growing up. And now it's like this whole new wild thing. A lot of it I'm getting too old to even understand.
I certainly have found that TikTok is I finally just like a couple of years ago acquiesced, and I was like, fine, let's see what's going on here. And it is a lot of fun, and it was something that does make me happy is like, you can see the average person, if they're not always funny or whatever, does have something in them that is either creative or funny or interesting. Maybe it's only for one video and the rest of their stuff is kind of, but they have a moment, and I love being able to see that moment out of people because it makes them happy, it makes other people happy. However, I think you're 100% right that the nourishment isn't there. And I think people only seek to achieve what they can see, right? My constant example is Tony Hawk doing the 900. At first we were just doing kick flips and that was, whatever. And then Tony Hawk does the 900. Now you have 16-year-olds doing, 1280s.
Yeah, it's like sports in general. It's just like I've always, being somebody that came from that world and was always like trying to like push what you could do. It's wild to examine like how things that seemed impossible at some point, once you see somebody do it, how much more possible it is than you ever thought. Yeah. And then just the natural progression of things. Like everybody like just says like, yeah, nobody could ever do that. Or maybe there'd be one person, then it turns out one person does it. And then it turns out most people could do that.
It just needed to see
how like, the mental side of things comes into play there.
Yeah. But I think that exact thing is what makes me nervous about most people, younger people watching like just YouTube.
Yeah.
Because they're not striving. It's all consumerism based. It's all like we're selling a product. We're selling Squarespace and whatever set of lenses I was just sent.
Yeah. No, obviously like we grew up watching TV and stuff and we saw that to some extent and everything was getting jammed down and like thrown at us in terms of like selling stuff, but it wasn't quite the same balance. Like we were still watching movies and stuff. And I don't know. Are kids doing that?
So did you said you started your studio with your friends then, like from college?
Yeah. So we started Stepped when it actually began, like when we were way young and we were making ski films under that name for years. And then it was my two buddies that I grew up with, two brothers, Nick and Alex Martini. And and then we just sort of kept doing that for a long time. The ski movies like got to a level of sort of professionalism, and we started working with a bunch of different like brands and stuff like to support the film.
Right.
And then slowly it was funny to see as like more like social media and like different platforms for advertising sort of arose. We were getting like, in addition to just going out and like filming the ski movie, it would be like, hey, can you make us some like product videos for our YouTube channels and stuff? And then like, can you make this video? And that was sort of our intro to like commercials.
Right.
And then eventually we started getting less and less money to make the movie and more money to make the other videos. And then before we knew it, we were sort of like, oh, we should probably just make commercials. But at the same time, we were doing a lot of cool stuff with like sort of branded documentary work and like telling stories for those brands. And we're still getting that sort of same fulfillment going out and like making proper films. So
totally.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Well, and I know I just got done shit talking commercialism, but it does take money to make stuff. And when you're lucky enough to have a brand go like, yeah, we'll just give you a bunch to make like because I saw you did like an Arc'teryx short or something. What was that?
So that's kind of like, those are sort of those brand funded stories that we get to tell. And those are like, shooting big commercials and that side of things is always fun because, they're usually a little bit better funded. But like I think our like real enjoyment is when we get to go out and like tell a story a little bit like smaller crew, scrappier, sort of back to the roots type of stuff. And yeah, the Arc'teryx one was a super cool opportunity. We like, as soon as it came through, we knew we wanted to, like myself and Nick, he directed it and I shot it. And we were just like, oh, we need to do this. It was like in our home territory. We grew up in the mountains in New Hampshire, and it was a cool story to tell because not many people know about that mountain, Mount Washington out there, and that it held the highest wind speeds recorded on Earth, and it has some of the most extreme like weather just period on Earth. And we actually got to experience some of that while we were out there when chill hit 100 below. and that's the stuff that like keeps us going. It's just like making films in the elements and in the mountains and that sort of thing, being outside. So that's what we're like passionate about.
So when you this spurred a question in me that I'd love to know your take on, but like, when is having a small scrappy crew great, and when is it terrible?
um at the same time, I don't no,
Yeah.
I mean there's just certain like I mean there's just so many instances where like and Nick and I will say this to each other all the time. We like go out and we'll shoot like proper stuff. Like we did like a moto campaign for Oakley last year. And that was like, we just went out and did that with a small crew. And, you know, granted it was outside, but we had full on stuff that we have in a commercial production, drone unit, 2 camera units, camera cars, all that stuff. But it's just like 10 of us.
Right.
And it just, sometimes it just makes things so much easier. Obviously, you don't want to be like so short man that you're like running around with your head cut off, but
I just did an ad
there's
with
a balance.
4 of us.
Oh yeah.
It's not chill.
No, there is a limit to how much support. But I just did like I was down in Ecuador in the Galapagos, and we had an 8-person crew, and it was actually like perfect. We ran 4 cameras, and we were on like little like Zodiacs going out to all these islands and stuff, and we just figured out our system. But if it like sometimes like I feel like if we had any more than that, it just would have like slowed us down.
Sure.
You know, there's benefits to both sides, but yeah, I think at this point I prefer kind of trimming some of the fat.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like the less people around, the more cohesive you can be with your
Yeah.
not only economy of motion, but just economy of vision.
Yeah.
You know, there's not too many cooks in the kitchen.
No, it's easy. And like everybody's sort of.
Oh, did you lose me?
I
Oh,
can
there you are. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Yep.
Yeah. I was just saying, I think it's a lot of times it's easier to find a rhythm when everybody's sort of on the same page and like everybody knows what's going on. Everybody's just there. Like sometimes on, you know, bigger sets and stuff, there's so much like disassociation from what's actually being shot that you, yeah, it takes everything a little bit longer. But,
Yeah.
but I mean, sometimes that's the way it has to be. When people are spending a lot of money on certain things, there's a lot of people that need to be involved. And I get it. But
Well, and it's funny, right? Because like you grow up thinking, oh, I want to be on big sets. And then the more you're on big sets, you're like, I would hate how big this is.
yeah. And you're like,
None of this is
like,
helpful.
I grew up doing everything like just moving so quick, like onto the next. But like you can't like on sets like that, you can't really move in that way.
Yeah. I saw on Endurance there was like 4 DPs total.
Yeah, so I was just responsible for recreations. That was what our unit was tasked with.
Cool.
So yeah, and obviously I don't know how familiar you are with the story, but
I read up on the story. They didn't send me a screener, so I haven't seen it.
Yeah. No, I mean
it comes out in a couple months.
Yeah. So it's crazy in that back in the day in 1912 or I forget the exact date, they were actually able to capture, somebody documented almost the whole journey. And they almost, you know, they faced death and they had to sort of evacuate their expedition. And so obviously there was parts that didn't get captured. They valued their lives a little bit more than the shot at times.
Jerks.
So we were sort of tasked with sort of filling some of those holes in the visuals, which was so cool. Like I've known about this story like my whole life, and it's one of the most impactful and like crazy experiences that a group of humans has ever had.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to be a part of it and to like recreate some of these scenes and do like full period recreations of these like early 1900s, you know, explorers. And yeah, and then we also, the approach that we came up with to do it was pretty dynamic. We got to like shoot in a lot of different scenarios, both like on location and in the studio. And yeah, both sides of it were really cool to like flush out and, you know, create that look that we needed.
Well, and that honestly had to have been the more fun version, because like every time I interview someone on a documentary, every time I shoot a documentary, I'm in charge of interviews.
Yeah.
It's like, it's very rare you get to go like play like that, actually go make a, narrative, so to speak, on a doc. Oh, he froze again. There he is.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I told you my internet is it's very well going to be
mine's following suit.
Spectrum. Yeah. But anyway, I was saying that it's rad that you got to actually like go make a movie, and so to speak, quote unquote, go make a movie versus just doing interviews.
Yeah, it had more of a narrative element to it, in that we were just sort of following a script, and we worked pretty closely.
But you get the costumes, you get the whole thing,
Yeah, exactly. It was great. And no, it was definitely on the scrappier side of that sort of things. We were a pretty small crew, but we still got to play with some different like capture methods. We did some of it on an LED volume in LA.
Oh wow, okay.
We shot some of it in our studio. We did like the interiors of like sort of a boat that they had turned over to sort of make a shelter for themselves. And then we went out to Iceland to shoot some of the on location stuff that were on the beach that sort of posed as some of the islands adjacent to Antarctica.
Mm.
So yeah, it was sort of, we got to do a little bit of everything, and it was yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the stuff that we were able to get.
Were you, with the volume thing, I read somewhere that you guys had like even trained an AI model on like their voices so they could read their own diaries.
Oh yeah.
And I just thinking of like the future, volumes and that stuff. That's probably one of the more excusable uses of AI. Those guys definitely not around.
No, there's some scary potential there, but
what were you guys trying to, was there like a specific look you were going for in these recreations? Were you going like, all right, we're going to shoot vintage lenses, or or were you more just like clean, let's just get the shot?
In general, it was a little combination of both. So like we used some more vintage glass to sort of dirty the image a little bit, and like they were shooting on the actual trip, they were shooting 16 in like I forget who was the manufacturer of the camera, but literally just a 16 cam that looked like a wooden box.
Yeah.
We actually got one as a prop that appears in some of the footage, but I'm just like astounded how much footage actually came back from that trip. Like,
from a box.
The equipment that they're working with. But yeah, it's wild. But so we were sort of trying to match what a look that would be similar to that. So we employed some like older Zeiss glass and stuff from the 70s, obviously not quite as vintage as what they're actually using, but something that would give it a little bit of grit. But then in terms of like camera, we knew that we were going to be shooting in a bunch of different environments, particularly in like super low light, some of the like boat interiors. So I ended up going with the shooting on the A35.
Sure.
Just to get, using the dual ISO. And so, some of the super low light stuff wasn't terribly like noisy or grainy. And it worked out well. And obviously we're shooting like so much dynamic range and, so much image fidelity, but then just crushing it all down to sort of match that archival look. But I think it worked out well. I think we wanted to give them more to work with than less, and being like married to something, there was talks of shooting on 16 and like shooting a Bolex and doing that sort of thing. But we're like, all right, that might just add more complications down the road. So
I actually
need more to work with.
Canon just sent me the C80 the like
Yeah.
C400 sensor, dude. Like the 12,800 is too fast.
No,
You don't need it. I was literally out in the middle of the desert at night, so
oh
zero
yeah.
light.
Moonlight will do it.
Yeah, and I know I had to kill it. I was like, you know what, 64, just be at 64.
I'm gonna knock this down.
Yeah, it was too
That's
aggressive.
wild. Yeah, the sensitivity is getting wild, and just like how it can still, it's like I feel like there's been like that super high sensitivity stuff for a while, but like you shoot it and like your color fidelity looks insane. Like just not realistic really, but they're getting good at that stuff.
Well, and also it's when everyone leans on it so heavily, you lose contrast. Like just by the nature of the way you're like, if everything's low light or
Yeah.
natural light, unless you're in the sun, it's
Yeah.
gonna look flat. And then everyone goes online and complains that how everything looks flat and boring. It's like, well, fucking stop shooting that way. Stop giving
Yeah.
producers something to point to.
Yeah, we were utilizing it in literally, I mean, I I think it was like the first time I shot in this type of environment where I could barely see with my own eye. Like we were trying to like sort of block out the shots and whatnot, and like people were like tripping over everything because like nobody could see anything or any of the props. And I would look at the image in the camera and I was like, oh, we do have it, because we were literally just lighting by like candlelight and then like a few like filament bulb like fixtures like tucked way away to give just like the slightest little glow, but like nobody could see shit. Just what the camera could.
Yeah. Well, that's the other funny thing too I noticed is at such high ISOs, the tally light will expose the scene to a degree.
Yeah, you gotta
so now
turn
you
that
got to
off.
tape that thing down.
I think I think we actually made that mistake at first. I'm like, what the fuck is that red light?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
it's me.
me? Yeah. Yeah, no, but so that was fun that we got to utilize that. We did that on our stage here, and then yeah, that the volume work turned out really nice. We basically built a one of the camps when they first landed or got stuck in the ice in Antarctica. There was a number of scenes that they have the narration for where they're actually talking about like these specific events. And so we built a whole camp set with the combination of like practical, props and a set in front of the LED volume. And yeah, we did like a full day there, and it worked out really well. It was, yeah, a pretty ideal tool for that because there were so many elements that we were trying to incorporate, like snow, wind, fog, all that stuff. And that's like one of the benefits of the volume work is you can incorporate all those, whereas it gets a little more challenging when you're trying to do, blue screen or green screen work.
Right. And I blacked out. Did you say this was your guys' volume?
No, it was one in town, Phantom. Yeah, they're it's like I can't remember, downtown or something, but yeah, just like a smaller stage, but it worked for what we needed to do for this.
Yeah. Did you find, like, I've interviewed people who've shot on the biggest ones in the world and the smallest ones in the world, and all of them have said kind of the same thing where it's like, it's cool, but
Yeah. I mean, it's just like anything. It's like it has its uses and its pros and cons.
Yeah. Well, I guess my line of questioning was just going to be, have you found that they've ironed out some of those early like technological kinks versus, like, because it seemed like for a while there, it was like, it wasn't even the schedule or the actors or anything that was holding everyone back. It was like Unreal Engine.
The tech, yeah. I mean, we were pretty fortunate. I've been part of some shoots where it does not go smoothly and it's a huge time suck. But we were pretty fortunate on this shoot in particular. We had little to no issue. But that is one consideration about it is rather than, you have to get everything so dialed in. And if you're not working with an Unreal artist that's super dialed, that can be super time consuming. Like it's very cool in a way that you can be like, hey, I want to move that tent over here in the background. And if your client gets a hold of that, if you're doing it like a commercial or something,
Yeah.
that can open up a whole can of worms. I mean, it's a really cool ability to have on set. And then, but you just need to be really sure of it because you're baking it into your image.
Right.
Or you're causing a bunch more post work. And the idea is to like stay away from that. But yeah, no. So there's a lot of things that can bog down those productions. And but yeah, luckily on this shoot we were pretty free of that. It went fairly smooth. And I think that's just kind of the nature of it. It's just the technology is getting better. The people that work with that tech are getting more proficient. And I think it'll continue to go that way. But I don't see it as being like the perfect tool for everything. Like I feel like when it first came about, people were like, "Oh, we're never going to need to go to location for anything." So like that might come at a time, but I don't think it's going to be a little bit bigger than than an LED volume. But
it's that. And even on like The Mandalorian, which I remember being like the thing that kicked it off. I remember watching that first season going, yeah, this is good. I can tell.
Yeah,
like, it's still not better than being out in the desert.
See, like people sort of limit their coverage a little bit.
Their dynamic range too. I'm just in the image.
The quality of the image too gets a little bit. And I think a lot of that stuff has been ironed out too as the pixel to become finer and they can, output more and there's more range and all those elements get better with the actual hardware.
Yeah.
Then a lot of that element of it will go away. But
well, for your guys' smoothness, did that kind of just come down to shot selection, like going in knowing exactly what you wanted and keeping it kind of contained, or were you able to play around a bit?
We were able to play around a little bit and switch up some things on the day and add some things. But I mean, yeah, you definitely want to be very prescriptive when you're in that world. It's definitely helpful. But yeah, I mean, the reason that we did that really was that was going to require, no matter how we slice it, that was going to require a big set build to like build those practical camps and tents and all that. And we're like, all right, well, we can go do this in the snow somewhere and get like all these actors. It was also like the most talent of any of the scenes. And we're like, this just seems like it would be so like weather dependent. And like, are we going to get like, because it called for different lighting looks too. There's different times of day. And we're like, how can we rely on this not being like just completely white out the whole time we're there, or like we don't get any snow? Like, so it did offer us that flexibility and, all of those things within the course of a shooting day. So that, in that sense, we were using it to its fullest potential using that tech. So it was, yeah.
That's cool. I mean, like, like you said, with that technology maturing, I think we're seeing it used more like in like Masters of the Air, just having it outside the cockpit, even though all that ended up getting VFX'd anyway. But like,
well, most of it does need a level of that stuff. And
that actually, now that I say that out loud, that is kind of crazy that people can go to all that effort just to have it get painted over again. And then VFX artists get shit on at the end of the day anyway, because, whatever, a shot didn't look great in a different scene. They're like, you don't know how much work we did on the stuff you like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is an interesting element too, that you get a certain light quality and like that feels realistic. I mean, you still need to augment the shit out of it. Like there's the wall's not doing all the work, but it gets you in a place where you're like, okay, this is what this would sort of feel like. And now I can, walk stuff into.
Yeah. Cause I think that was the big thing that I didn't believe for a second, which is when they were like, oh, the environment can light you just put a sun there and it is the sun, or a big white square and it will just, I'm like, no, that's not going to look
still
good.
going to use our lights.
Yeah. Can guarantee you the spectral output of that LED wall is not great.
Yeah. Again, it's all getting better, but
yeah. Well, and it's cool because I remember at first, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you had to use like a specific camera. You had to use like an Alexa built for the LED wall because it was like a refresh rate issue or something, like where it had to be specced out. And now it seems like you can kind of shoot what you want.
Yeah, we were able to, I mean, we've done productions with a number of different cameras. I mean, I mainly shoot on Arri stuff, but yeah, it's just, and you're able to use all the different lensing too, like anamorphic too. Gets a little funky with all that stuff, but it's, yeah, I mean, they're able to adapt it to pretty much anything that we would want to use. So it's cool.
Hell yeah. Well, we're coming up on the hour, so I got to let you go. But even though I was late, which is my bad. But when does the documentary come out? November?
No, I think it's premiering.
Oh, it premieres in like 2 days.
Yeah, in London this weekend.
Yeah. So premieres in London, streaming.
I'm not the one to ask about any of those release dates, but it should
because this podcast is coming out like post haste. London Film Festival, October 12th, and then streaming soon after. So if you're in London, you can go see it this weekend.
That's what we got.
Yeah. Well, it was great talking to me, and I'm really like the doc. Yeah. Just from like the little stuff I was able to research on it, the doc looks really cool. And they obviously, we didn't talk about it, but they did like 4K rescans of all that film that they showed.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
It was recolored and all that, so it looks like you guys put a lot of really great work into it. So I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah, I was stoked to be a part of it. It's one of the coolest stories in humanity, and yeah, it was rad to be in it.
Cool. Well, please stay in touch, man. I'd love to keep chatting next time you make some, or just
absolutely. Great to meet you.
You too, brother.
All right, take care. Have a good one.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so on Patreon by going to frameandrefpod.com, where you can get all the episodes, and clicking the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.